The more I play it, the closer Kirby 64 comes to being my favorite Kirby game. I don't think it'll top my actual favorite, Superstar Ultra, but it's definitely getting there. I have a surprising amount to say about this game, some things that might even piss off some people. But before we get to what'll easily be the most contentious part and the crux of this video, I do actually just want to talk about the game first too. So let's do that. Okay, first off, can we talk about how fucking good this game looks? This is an N64 game, and it looks more like an early Wii game. And keep in mind, a lot of N64 games looked like this, i.e. bad. Even good-looking games look bad on the N64. I'll never forgive you for that one, Nintendo. Also, I'm doing a bit if you couldn't tell. I actually like how a lot of N64 games look, but I think they're mainly held back by the addition of texture filtering. If you're wondering what that is, it basically means that the textures on all the models are blurry. This was, in my opinion, a bad move. It's led to a lot of N64 games aging way worse visually to me than, say, PS1 games. I bring all this up because, in spite of that aspect, Kirby 64 looks fucking fantastic. Sure, it might not be graphically up to snuff with today's standards, but I don't give a shit about graphical fidelity anywhere near as much as good stylization. I swear, the people who bring up graphics as mattering so much sound like the same kind of people that won't watch old movies because they look too old. Let's talk about the game's namesake real quick. If I'm being real with you, if you play this game and it's your first time, I would genuinely recommend that you don't bother with collecting the crystal shards. Maybe grab the obvious ones you can see, but I really think trying to go for all of them on your first run will make your first experience not bad, but not as good as it could be either. It's not even the shards themselves that are the problem, it's how you're expected to get some of them. This actually leads me on to one of the many things I genuinely love about this game, the copy abilities. More accurately, combining copy abilities. Any two copy abilities in the game can be combined for a unique result. Some of my favorites are the Ninja Star, the Fireworks, and of course the ever-classic Fridge. But there are so many different combinations, it's almost overwhelming. You can even combine two of the same copy ability to get a more powerful version of it. It gives a lot of freedom to the player, even more than just the normal copy abilities would, and it's easily my favorite gimmick any of the games have introduced before or after. Yes, even more than Robobot's, Robobot. I bring this up in relevance to the last thing I said though, because in order to get some of the crystal shards you need specific combinations of copy abilities, and it can throw a real wrench into this game's pacing. It's a shame too, because I do find looking for a lot of the crystal shards fun, but then you get to those ones that are locked behind certain combos, and while it doesn't ruin the experience, it can dampen it a bit. So, like I said earlier, if it's your first time, just go through and collect the shards you can, and then go back for the rest if you feel so inclined. You'll even be rewarded with something neat if you do. Going back to the visuals for a moment, I wanted to bring up another technical achievement. This game's cutscenes are fascinating. They're well animated, especially for the time, but that's not what I'm interested in bringing up actually. All of Kirby 64's cutscenes run at 60 frames per second. This is impressive because a lot of games on the N64 usually ran at 30 FPS at the best of times. Hell, games like Majora's Mask could barely stay at a stable 20. And to be fair, the actual game part plays at 30 FPS too, but it's a stable 30 FPS that I've personally never seen dip below that number. Or maybe my eyes just aren't as good at spotting that kind of thing, I don't know. And I'm not a snob for frame rate either. If it's playable, I don't mind, so I think it says a lot that even I noticed how impressive this was. It also meant I had to record footage at 60 FPS, making my file sizes bigger. That's not the game's fault, I'm just petty. Kirby moves weirdly slow in this game, even his crouch has some molasses in it. Which is a shame because it means I can't dance, man! How are you gonna make a Kirby game and not let me dance? You know, that's actually a good transition into the music, I'm gonna put that in the script. Wait, I don't know if I'd say Kirby 64 is my favorite Kirby soundtrack, but it's definitely close. Each song is pretty much perfect for how they're used, and they're also just pretty catchy. My favorite is easily Factory Inspection. That's probably one of my favorite levels too. Hell, that entire world is just fantastic. The implications behind that one are also interesting to think about. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Shiverstar specifically inspired parts of the Forgotten Land.
Lead me to the building, fuck you.
One last thing before we move on to the main reason I even made this video. This might surprise you, but I actually love the story, despite its simplicity. I really like how it's told without any dialogue, and the cutscenes are adorable and just the right length. My favorite thing about the story is how you start to fill out this little entourage after helping characters out along the way. Ribbon, Waddle Dee, Adeline, and of course, Dedede. God, I love Dedede in this game. He's still a little shit sometimes, and his rivalry with the Pink Puff is still on display, but he's got no qualms about doing the right thing and helping out. That's part of why he's my favorite character in the series. I just love the jerk with a heart of gold trope. Also, this game is home to easily my favorite design for Dreamland's one and only king. Look at his face! His penguiny face! Right, anyway, let's get on to the part that the video is titled after. So I have this small problem with Return to Dreamland and its subsequent games up to the Forgotten Land. That problem is that these games had no real reason to be 3D. Depth is used a little bit, especially in the 3DS titles, but for the most part these could have been full-on 2D games and I don't think much would change. Whereas I think Crystal Shards actually utilized both the strengths of 2D and 3D, being a true 2.5D game. There's real depth here that gets used effectively for both gameplay and aesthetics. Kirby 64 actually felt like it had a reason to be 3D, whereas later titles never hit that mark for me. Okay, look here. Kirby is actively curving around geometry, and the background and foreground are being pushed around to accommodate. In Return to Dreamland, you're walking on a flat line. And again, sure, the 3DS titles specifically do use 3D this way a bit more than Return or Star Allies, but not enough times to really justify it personally. And I'm a little saddened by this, to tell the truth. The way Crystal Shards used 3D was so interesting to me. Obviously, you're still moving around this world like you would in a 2D game, but it feels so much more expansive and like a real world when executed this way. And you know what the worst part is? We almost got another Kirby game styled like Kirby 64 on the GameCube. But guess what? That game became Return to Dreamland. A very fun game, don't get me wrong, but one that could have at least looked a bit less sterile and a bit more interesting. Don't worry, by the way, I'm fully aware of the elephant in the room also. Yes, I know, Forgotten Land exists, and to be honest, I have some problems with how that game looks too. None with the 3D aspect though, that was executed very well I think, but the visuals themselves play it too safe for my liking. And I get it, playing it safe with the style is an understandable move with this being Kirby's first real 3D platformer. I just hope they do something a bit more interesting with the aesthetics if they do make another fully 3D Kirby game after the Forgotten Land. It should also be noted, I have no problems with how any of these games look for the most part. My worst takeaways from them are that they can look kind of sterile and flat. Overall, they still look fantastic, I just think that 64 looks better, and part of that is due to how Crystal Shards utilized the third dimension. It also helps that even though the game uses familiar world themes, 64's locales still look very distinct and memorable from the rest of the series. Whereas with later titles, including the Forgotten Land, I feel like I've been here, done that, if that makes sense. I'm sure most people won't see me eye to eye on this specific topic, and that's fine, it's all subjective anyway. I just really wanted to get my thoughts out on this, and I'm happy to have done so. So yeah, that's the Kirby 64 video, folks. Structured a bit differently than the past couple videos, hope you're cool with that because I really don't give a shit. This is a topic I've been wanting to do ever since I streamed Kirby 64 about 2 months ago, link in the description. I'm glad I did because I genuinely find Kirby's transition into 3D a fascinating topic since the series didn't follow in its contemporaries' footsteps until about 20 years later. I can't say I blame HAL Labs for taking so long, I'm sure it's fair to say a lot of people didn't even think the series could work in full 3D, and then Forgotten Land proved everybody wrong. But yeah, I guess I hope you liked the video, I don't know man. Go watch my fucking TAC video.